Mexicans.
Hello, YouTube. This is K2 Karamo, and we're back again with the Philosopher Stonecast. This is episode 7, and this is a philosophy podcast. And sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. Here we go. I gotta find a better way to do this. Okay. So yeah, we're going to continue again with politics, but the overall theme of this is America.
America.
And what's going on in, America.
North America.
All of America.
America. Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Coming again.
Said the Mexican.
Yeah. Also, I'm hearing a echo.
Is it me?
Maybe.
I have two speakers, my computer's regular computer speakers in front of me. I don't know. Is that coming through?
I'm gonna go turn off my heater so that way I can hear better and turn down my sound.
I think it's just.
Well, don't freeze yourself out then.
Sorry, it kind of had a. It just. I can't talk. Like, the echo is just bothering me too much.
Alright, is this better?
Hello. I still hear it.
Okay, let me turn me down more. Alright, now?
Hello? Okay.
Cool.
We're good.
We're good. In the neighborhood.
Alright. So, I hear it again. This is so professional.
Hold on. I'll see if I can...
I don't know what it is. Somebody doesn't have their...
Shit.
I don't think it's mine.
I have my speakers on the lowest volume possible to hear you guys.
Alright.
Turn off my speaker.
How about now?
Testing. I hear it a little bit, but it's not as bad.
It could be me, I guess, because I'm only using the microphone on my headset.
Okay, that's probably what it
check
is.
something.
Okay, well let me switch to full headset.
And try plugging this bastard in and see if that does anything. Alright.
Okay.
How's it now?
Hello. Yes. All right. There we go. I don't know. I still kind of hear it. Okay. Thank you guys for coming. Even though there's no viewers here, thank you for watching.
In the future, yes.
In the future.
Will come to us.
Yes. Anyways, yeah, we're going to be talking about America. There's a lot going on in politics. We still want to... There's just... It's never ending, you know. So there's stuff about Donald Trump. Did you guys see the those little girls dancing for him or whatever?
No, actually I didn't see that.
Okay. I can show you the video here once I pull it up. Screen share.
I'm going to just mute my microphone when I'm not using it.
Okay.
It's like Hitler Youth.
This one. Do you see this?
Oh no, that looks weird from the start.
Basically, they're just singing and dancing about how Donald Trump is great and he's going to make America great or whatever. Um, yeah, like it's. I mean, I can barely watch it. It's terrible. Um, and a lot of people were comparing it to like kind of like how Kim Jong Il has his thing where he has kids and children sing and praise him and stuff like that.
Hey, Donald Trump respects Kim Jong Un for his
Yeah.
power, for basically killing his uncle. He respects him.
I
His words,
mean,
not his words, not mine.
this shit it more or less reminds me of like something from Nazi Germany, like Hitler Youth style propaganda. Godwin's law
The
already
funny thing
violated.
is like the Republicans on the in the 2012 election blasted Obama whenever he took a picture with a child or kissing a baby or anything like that, or had children on YouTube who would speak out in praise of him. They're like, "How dare you involve children?" And now they're dancing on the stage for Donald Trump, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay because like they agree with him, so it's okay then.
I think he's. I think I think he is sincere in what he's talking about and doing or whatever. Like that's really how he is. But I think that he doesn't understand I don't think he's that smart about things.
Well, no, I
No,
mean,
they've shown that he reads or that he speaks at basically a third grade level, and he's like textbook narcissist. Like there should be a picture of him next to that definition in psychological textbooks.
it's gonna be huge, huge.
It's so huge. It's gonna be
Yeah.
huge and
And
great.
I think the only reason he's even like on doing this is just because he has the money to do it, and he needs like I'm just gonna go and be president because I have the money and I want to buy my way in there.
The funny thing is like he said recently, I'm gonna build America up like I built my company. I'm thinking, didn't you go through bankruptcy court
5 times.
5 times? I was like, I don't think that's a good idea.
The important answer to or question to ask him would be at that point, which one?
Right. I mean, like, is it your father's model or is it yours? And that's the thing. Like, you see, like, especially like with a lot of politically active people, their fathers started out, but their fathers were far vastly different than them. They weren't willing to say things for applause lines. They, like Donald Trump says, "I'm gonna make America great again," or if he mentions like another country, I love the Chinese. I love the Chinese. I have tons of Chinese working for me, but we need to take the money back from them that they took from us, the wages and the job they took back from us. And it's the
Have you
same thing he
seen?
says about Mexico. I have tons of Mexicans working for me. Tons is what he literally said. He said tons. I had tons of Mexicans working for me. And I'm thinking, how can anyone see that as a redeeming quality? You have tons of Mexicans. Like, did you take a survey? Did you literally send an email going, if you're Mexican, please check yes? I mean, how does he know this?
Well, what he did, you see, is he went around and he rounded up all of the Mexicans working for them, and he put them on a scale so that he could see how much they weigh, and it came into the tons. Push us over to being all Mexican-like.
He says the same thing about the Chinese, and like whenever he starts out saying something, as far as like uh, saying that a country took something from us, he tries to like minimize it by saying Oh, I know tons of Chinese. I know people. I know these people. They're great people. It's kind of like saying like I
It's
have that one black friend, so I can be racist. It's like I had that one black friend growing up, so I can say the N word. You know.
I had that one black friend.
Yeah, I have like that one too. I think it's our black friend, or it's the same black friend.
Yeah, it is.
Was his name Eli?
His name is Michael. He's black.
He's black.
I literally had I grew up in Vermont, where Bernie Sanders is from. Okay, in Burlington, Vermont. I grew up in Burlington, Vermont.
Mhm.
Um, and oddly enough, 45 Elm Street, which is a horror movie, and I never saw any minorities. The only two people I saw that were minorities were two black people in the school. One was his brother in high school, and his name was Eli in kindergarten, and I was his friend. Okay, and so I could literally say I had that one black friend. That doesn't mean I can be a racist, but Donald Trump will use that. He'll go, "These are wonderful people. Oh, I have tons of working for them. I know them. I like these people. They like me." And then he goes back his racist rant on afterwards if he excuses it.
Yeah, he's a joke. I mean, I don't know why people take him even like a little bit serious.
Because he's
It's
white.
called dumb. It's called being very
But I
dumb.
guess if he paid me enough, I guess I would
That's
be
the
able to
issue.
support him. Yeah.
Hey, Chris, you're crackling.
Um, am I?
Yeah, a little bit.
Uh, I don't know why.
Actually, you kind of remind me of like Star Trek TNG, like garbled space transmission talk, like right before they cut out. It's kind of cool.
Mm,
Send them static.
how about now?
Well, sorry, that's from Wrath of
Still
I
though.
mean, how about now?
Not so much.
Speak a little more.
Hello.
Yeah, it's doing it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Uh, I don't know why.
I don't think it detracts too much from the conversation, but I think you're good. I think you're good.
I'm going to
Technical,
read
technical difficulty.
some really, really dumb Donald Trump quotes. How about that?
Okay.
Should be good.
All right. All right. Okay, let me. Hey, Chris.
Muted himself, I think.
Yeah. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Is the mic better?
Nah.
Cat.
I'm looking for some good ones.
I'm surprised you're
All
not
right.
able to find them already.
All right. Here we go. Here's one. Sorry, losers and haters, but my IQ is one of the highest, and you all know it. Please don't feel so stupid or insecure. It's not your fault. And then he says, I may be elitist, and perhaps that's what golf needs. Let golf be elitist. When I say aspire, that's a positive word. Let people work hard and aspire to someday be able to play golf. I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. I don't wear a rug. It's mine, and I promise not to talk about your massive plastic surgeries that didn't work. He's talking about his hair. I like China. I just sold an apartment for $15 million to someone from China. Am I supposed to dislike them? If Hillary Clinton can't satisfy her husband, what makes her think she can satisfy America? Yeah, I don't think Ivanka would do that. Although she does have a very nice figure, I've said if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
Oh my gosh.
The concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive. You know, it doesn't really matter what the media write as long as you've got a young and beautiful piece of ass. You know, the funny thing, I don't get along with rich people. I get along with the middle class and the poor people better than I get along with the rich people. That's just some of them. I was looking for one in particular wherever he's asked a question at one of his rallies, and he basically says, "I'm going to make America great again," and or you know I'll have to find that one because I want to read it exactly how he said it because it's the most wonderful example of exactly how this guy works, how he appeals to people, and I'll show it to you whenever I find it.
I'm already jaw dropped in the last two.
He is a joke, and he's a pan. He's not. I mean, he's like he looks weak, and he acts like he's tough, and I just don't like it.
He just represents that broken record. And it's the same with all Republican parties. It's the same plain brain stuff. You know, guns, taxes, regulation, foreigners. You know, but there's nothing beyond that. You know, they always like to they lead with fear. You know, if you repeat something enough, they'll believe it. I think there was a Ronald Reagan who said that, right? If you repeat something enough, they'll see
Actually,
it.
that one dates back all the way to the Nuremberg trials. Whenever they were talking to what was the name of that guy? One of the most horrible people concerning the death camp or the concentration camps. He basically, talking about propaganda, said that if you tell a lie long enough, then people will believe it is true. Uh,
Yeah, sorry, I have a lot of useless. I have a lot of quotes in my head, but no attachment to who they actually came from. You know, he is like the perfect example of the quote, um, which is basically never get into an argument with a stupid person because they'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. And that's what he's doing to the Republican Party. He's literally bringing them down to the stupid level. I mean, as much as they can already be. And he's beating them with experience and he's winning. But what was funny though is I was. Did you guys see that Facebook thing about the lawsuit to get the Ingawi Trust removed from the dollar bill? Did you guys see that on Facebook? That was a news story. It was like 42 atheists were filed a lawsuit against the Modo Ingawi Trust on dollar bills.
Hmm.
And one person quoted Thomas Paine, which I thought was hilarious because Thomas Paine is an atheist. You know, and they were saying that this is. He basically said it was. I will fight today so that my children will have a better future tomorrow, or something like that. It was. But he was quoting Thomas Paine, who was an atheist, but he was a Christian defending Ingawi Trust on bills. I just thought that was hilarious, and this represents the Republican Party in a sense. Donald Trump has dragged them down to the stupid level and is now beating them with experience, and that's why he's ahead.
Justin, what are you doing?
looking for that particular quote.
Yeah,
Still, give up already.
but
I
like
never give up.
Trump, I think is in some ways he appeals because of not because of what he says, because obviously if you look at what he says, he's full shit. But it's because of his personality. It's that dominant alpha male person now. I don't give a shit what anyone else says. I'm right, you're wrong. Okay,
Yeah.
and I think it's that appeal because you hear so much that oh Obama has made America weak. He's turned us into pussies or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just blatantly untrue. But the Republican Party, who has been largely led by fear for the past 30 or 40 years,
Yeah.
um, unfortunately by ultra conservatives, um, they've been led by fear, and so they look to these people who are alpha males who will fight any battle. Like you had Cruz, who said that he wouldn't have stood for the Iranian. Like the Iran basically took possession of two navy boats, and they basically took into possession navy personnel who operated the boats. And Ted Cruz during the Republican debate basically said, "I would launch the full strength of the U.S. military against them. They wouldn't know what hit them. I would fight. I would show them the strength of the U.S. military." Now, of course, that's a now, of course, it's an applause line. It's not possible. As a president, you wouldn't want to do that because Iran is one of the really the only allies the United States has in the Middle East. You could say Israel, but they vote against us in the UN. Um, but it's just fear-based led stuff. And so what they do is they look at these alpha male types who are willing to fight for anything and anything. And it's just and Donald Trump represents that. I don't care what you say. I'm right. I'm going to do this, no matter what anyone says, whether or not I can or cannot do it, whether it's proper procedure. And that's how he's winning. He's dragging people down to his stupidity level. He has to know what he's saying is bullshit. But he's dragging people down to his stupidity level, and he's beating them with experience. And he's basically, and it's because he has this false image of that alpha male.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of why he gets on my nerves, is because he poses himself as this alpha guy, and and you can just see that he's not like that, and that he's a pussy. You know, he'll turn down the fight any day.
He's the type of person who can almost successfully talk his way out of a fight
Yeah.
that he started. He'll start the fight. He'll get on your nerves. He'll start the fight. Oh, he'll start it. But when somebody comes at him with arguments that are sound or anything like that, he pushes them away. I mean, even if he can have like one or two hecklers in his crowd, and in normal debates, yeah, you ignore them and they shut up eventually. He automatically, right from the get-go, kicks them out.
Yeah.
And in some cases, I think that like he pays people to heckle him so that he can act up. Like, get him out of here. Get him. I don't want to see him. I don't want to
Found
hear
it.
him. Get him out of there. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Someone asked him the question, "How will you bring back the American dream?" This is the quote verbatim. "Look, we can bring the American dream back. That I will tell you. We're bringing it back, okay? And I understand what you're saying, and I get that from so many people. Is the American dream dead?" They are asking me the question, is the American dream dead? And the American dream is in trouble. That I can tell you, okay? It's in trouble. But we're going to get it back and do some real jobs. How about that man with that beautiful red hat? Stand up, stand up. What a hat.
He's a pussy. He can't. He won't fight, and he'll leave a fight, and that's why he. I don't know.
It's
I'm tired of shitting on Trump, because Trump it's just not worth.
Easy target.
It's just not worth the effort
Yeah.
to do it, because he already makes a huge fool of himself every day.
well
Let's
that
get on
one
Hillary then.
quote. That one quote particularly to me identifies exactly who his voting bloc is. They're very easily distracted people.
Yeah, I
He,
mean,
he got asked a question about how are you going to make America great again, and he says, "Look, I hear what people are saying, and stuff, and I'm going to do that, okay? Oh, look at that guy's hat. Look at that beautiful red hat. Seriously, it's like, really?
He saved himself from having to finish the conversation, basically. Like I said, he can talk his way out of a fight. He's a person. He'll start a fight, but he won't finish it. He'll talk his way out of it. He'll blame the other guy, and that's that thing with the look at the guy with the red hat. Look at the left hand while the right hand is over here doing something that you wouldn't approve of. You know,
Yeah.
it's that type of stuff. But Hillary, she actually made me shut off the YouTube debate 3 different times. I could not watch anymore because the pure amount of bullshit that was coming out of her mouth.
That was tonight, right?
Yeah, that was tonight around 9. And she and I didn't like the Democratic debate too much anyways, because basically what they did was they repeated all the problems we have that they see, but they didn't give any actual solutions.
Was Bernie there?
But yeah, Bernie was there.
What did he say?
But yeah, I mean, Bernie was okay, but Hillary and Martin O'Malley didn't get a chance to talk anyways because he's too much of a pussy to take command of the microphone. But Hillary was basically like, you could see her. She would pause in mid sentence. She would stutter. She was basically every single line was an applause line. Oh, I'm gonna shrink the wage gap between females and males. I'm gonna raise wages. But then she'll bash on Bernie for saying, "Oh well, your program costs too much because you'll have to raise taxes on the middle class and the rich class." But then she basically pairs programs that would cost a lot of money. She wants to control drug companies and how much they charge for drug prices. You're not going to be able to pass that through Congress. What are you saying that you're going to be able to? And I watched the first day she said that. I was watching CNBC because I invest in stocks, and the stocks of all the pharmaceutical companies went down. They dropped like for a couple of dollars or so, which is actually a lot. But she has no actual plan to do it. What are you going to do? You can't control industry because what is that? What is controlling industry for benefit of the people?
I will say this concerning pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceutical industry here in the U.S., we pay ridiculously higher prices for the same medications and same medical services, like on the magnitude of 10 to 12 times higher than most other developed countries.
We also subsidize a lot of medical care for different countries. And that came actually through the ACA. In some ways, we subsidize quite a bit of healthcare for other countries.
Well, in my opinion, actually Bernie brought this up himself in a talk show of sorts, where he was talking about he took a group of 14 women across the border to Canada to get breast cancer treatment, and it cost them, just by crossing the border, 14 times less than it would have cost here in the U.S. And I do think that there does have to be regulations put on pharmaceutical industries because they do gouge the shit out of people.
Yeah, you had that one example and I watched it basically as it was happening. You had that one guy who he was a fraudulent investor. He was a fraudulent stock trader, and he acquired a company through a holding company that sold a specific drug that used to be very, very cheap, and it was very effective at treating a specific disease. And I don't know what it is.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. He raised prices overnight by triple digits. He also got in trouble for it. Now he's in court for crimes. But
here's what I know exactly what you're talking about, and the guy he's referred to commonly as Pharma Bro, and his name is slipping my mind right now. It's not really important. You could just look up Pharma Bro and find out the dude's name. But what he did was, when he acquired that company, he actually raised the price of that medication, which was used to treat. It was for people with immune compromising diseases like cancer or like AIDS or HIV, and it helped their immune system. And he raised the price of that drug by over 700%. And he didn't actually get arrested for doing that. The
No.
sad thing is he was within his rights to do that. He got arrested for insider trading. So it goes to show you, screw the people, you don't get arrested. Screw Wall Street, yeah, you're gonna get arrested.
Yeah, I mean, you mess with big money, and they will sue you up the wazoo.
Yeah.
And they will take their money back.
His name is Martin
Skrelly.
Shkreli, yes.
When you said the
Yeah.
first name, I remembered the last one.
Yeah, I see him. He's
He looks like a douche too.
Just an old style douche. Not even 2000 douche, but an old style douche. Just beyond dirty.
there's a picture over here of him. It's like his picture, and then right next to him is a picture of Donald Trump.
Same kind of person.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, they look the same. Looks like his son.
Have you seen Donald Trump's wife? Could you imagine her as the first lady? Not trying to assassinate her character at all. I'm just trying to say, okay, she should not be with Donald Trump.
I barely typed in Donald Trump, and like the second one is Donald Trump wife.
Because like some teabagger Republican is out there right now, like fapping madly to Donald Trump's wife and going, "Oh, the next first lady."
We're
5'11". She's 45 years old. She's a jewelry and watch designer and a former model. Yeah, wow. Did she not his type? It's crazy. It kind of makes me wonder. Like, she's from Slovenia. I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm sorry for pronouncing that wrong, but is she the mail order bride or something? I mean,
That's what
because there's no
seems
way,
like.
there's no way a regular guy like him would get a guy like her, a girl like her. There's no way.
No, it's just not even like that. You could be slightly unattractive or even totally unattractive and still have such redeeming qualities in your personality that you can get someone who's that attractive if they like you. But it's like he is like bad, like he's like fucking horribly fucked up looking. He's like an Oompa Loompa who's not orange but has orange hair, and it's like a horrible hair piece, but it's actually his own hair that's been combed over or surgically implanted into his scalp. And he's a horrible person on top of all of that. Just like horrible person, obnoxious, rude, misunderstanding everything around him, categorizing people and dividing people. It's just such a bad character. How
And his mother's an orangutan. If you ask Bill Maher. He actually Donald Trump in 2012 in the first election when he first tried to run for president and he quit. He actually sued Bill Maher for saying that he wanted proof that Bill Maher wanted proof that Trump wasn't born from a orangutan.
See, my thing is I think Bill Maher was wrong because if Donald Trump had an orangutan as a mother, he'd be a much more caring person, I'm sure.
That's true. They are the more sociable animals when it comes. Sociable apes when it comes to the great apes we're linked to in some ways. Chimpanzees aren't as necessarily sociable. They're a lot more aggressive, and orangutans are a lot more. They learn sign language faster than most of the ape species. They're much more intelligent.
I would say that out of all of the apes, like I would say that you're probably right. Now, whenever people say sociable, sometimes like other definitions get oh wow, we're going way off tangent. But no, no, like basically if they aren't necessarily all that more aggressive, but they are still pretty aggressive. But if you look at us, we can't really separate ourselves from that because we're just as aggressive and violent, if not more, on the whole. And I think that most chimps aren't going to be necessarily violent or aggressive all the time. Some of them might be, but they usually get pushed out unless they're super alpha and lead. But every chimp within that dichotomy or in that spectrum, I'm sorry, is going to be aggressive at some point. And I think people fall into the same. You know,
Apes and man are the only two species where groups of males will gang up on one singular male. Humans and apes are the singular species when it comes to that, where groups of males will will attack a singular one. And I saw that in apes where they were attacking this one specific ape, and then like an elder person, like you were saying, like an alpha male, stepped in and it stopped it. And like led the ape away and then climbed a tree with it and everything like that and protected it from the rest of the apes. And
I
because he was
saw
an alpha,
that.
and because he was an alpha male, no one fucked with him. But unfortunately, the ape that was attacked died. But like humans and apes and our ancestors in some ways, but are the only ones that really like gang up
Although I
to
do
attack
have a
us.
problem with that. Like we're not technically the only ones. We found stuff if you actually watch these videos, I will try my best to link them to you after the podcast of course. But at this
Oh,
point,
thank you.
you'll have to take my word for it.
No,
But basically, you have horses, you have other types of herd animals that will do that too. Dolphins will do it, where they'll pick on and bully, sometimes to the point of death.
all males
Uh,
though.
yes, males will do that to other males in social groups, and it's not just us. Life is very odd in that way. And honestly, if you wanted to test IQ, as in the ability to recognize patterns and just do things based on that, which is all IQ is, uh, dolphins and whales would be magnitude smarter than humans, just because they can process more information and process more patterns faster than we can.
Yeah.
The difference between us and them is the fact that we can pass down information, like more information than they can,
Yeah,
anyways.
usually it's passed to
And we
them through
can
the genetic
keep it
code.
around. We can keep
Yeah.
that information around.
Like usually,
And
like information is passed through the genetic code,
yeah,
and that's how, and it's almost instinctual. With us, it's spoken. You know,
yeah.
we
Now there are things that other animals do learn and do pass down as taught. You know, obviously, some things are instinctual, some things are taught, and I think I mentioned this in the last podcast. But right now, researchers on in 3 different areas of the world are studying chimpanzees that have pretty much come into the Stone Age. Like they're fashioning stone tools.
Mm.
You know, so that has to be taught. They're
Certainly.
doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I was about to say was, what if like the dolphins or the whales or whatever? What if they were the ones to evolve and become the dominant species on Earth and just develop their brains more and be really smart? I guess it'd still be living in the water. Um, I don't know.
Well, we have any more
It's
sea
just kind
level
of
rise,
it's
but
just
when
kind of weird to think about it, because they'll evolve into something that's really hard to describe.
Here's my thing: is their brains are quadrilobial. Um, the dolphins and whales, their brains have 4 lobes, right? So part of their brain is sleeping at all times, and part of it's awake at all times, and it transitions. It's kind of like they're awake and it's badass. No, it's an evolutionary advantage for them in the means that they are very social and they're able to figure out what they need to do to survive, while they're basically pretty much defenseless fucking creatures, aside from the fact that they're really smart and they know what to do and they can fuck up a shark because they peg their nose into its gills, you know. But the point is, they wouldn't necessarily evolve into the dominant species by becoming like us. They may already be what we would consider more evolved if we were a dolphin, but without the need to do anything that humans have seemed to have done. And it's just, that's the oddity about humans, is the fact that we have recorded history that informs us in some way. And what people don't realize is our history, both in the aspect of the things we have recorded and in the aspect of how our culture has developed. And when I talk about history, I'm talking about two separate things. There's written history, which is primarily agreed upon stuff, and then there's like fucking fucking archaeology and fucking paleontology and looking up, like, looking in the ground to see how these people lived. Um,
The winners write the history.
yeah, well, the winners write the history, but no one gets to decide what goes in the ground. Reality decides that. So history that's purviewed through understanding that becomes somewhat clear. And whenever I say history, I don't necessarily just mean recorded history.
Mm.
I mean how people have acted, how we've come together as beings on this planet and migrated throughout the areas that we have. And I've lost my train of thought. What was I saying right before that statement?
We were talking about sociable animals. In fact, that we were talking about how, and Chris made the point that dolphins and whales may be
Dominant species. I
dominant
remember.
species.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing ever gets to be necessarily the dominant species. We all still share this planet, even though humans have taken the ability to alter it to an
Yeah,
extreme.
but you know what I mean, like
Yeah,
they
I know
were
what you mean.
like if they were the ones
But it presumes.
developed enough to create
Yeah.
cities and societies that we do today.
Like
Well, this
water world.
assumes that a smarter creature would. Is
But
my
yeah,
point.
but they would do it completely different, and maybe
What if
even
they already have?
not the same as.
I mean, you have to think about it. They have advanced communication we didn't have. They were able to speak for miles. Like you can hear whale songs for miles. We didn't invent the
And
radio until I think the 20th century. I don't.
And the hell of it is, most of the whale songs are, if you look at them on the language complexity meters that we've developed for understanding the complexity and an objective nature for language, whales and dolphins' language is more advanced than even the most advanced human language, which is Icelandic. But
Yeah, I mean, like they were teaching apes, orangutans, or anything like that. They were seeing how fast they developed in babies compared to human babies, and they found that like when chimpanzees were trying to speak our language, they learned it at a much slower rate. But sign language they picked up far faster than a human baby would. Like they can learn our language a lot better than us if it's applied to sign language, then we can learn. So I mean, yeah. So that's kind of the same way. Like whales and dolphins that have a very sophisticated language we can't understand. But just because they don't speak English does not mean that they're somehow less advanced than us.
yeah, well, and I say it's more complex, not necessarily that it's more advanced.
Well, that's my lame way of saying it,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, there's an important distinction to make, and it comes into play whenever you're talking to people on the internet about how life develops, how life evolves and stuff like that. People have a tendency to say, well, we're more evolved than these other apes, or we're more evolved, or this creature's more evolved than that one. Um, that's not what the scientific theory even talks about. Like, the evolution is not a ladder traveling or going up towards one particular place. It's all life trying to survive in whatever environment it's in, and the ones that do survive are the ones that get to pass on their genes. It's not like necessarily that they're always the best suited. It's just the ones that do survive tend to have some advantage or
Yeah,
a
and like if you,
neutral.
if you look at humans' nature, if you look at humans from just a natural point, you can't really say that we're more evolved.
No.
We can't run as fast. We don't have as much strength as much as the animals in there. We're not as tall. And we can't withstand cold as well as others. And
Or heat.
the only real reason why we survived was because of the fact that we had power numbers, and that was our key to survival was the amount of numbers we had, and our ability to work together.
Well, I wouldn't even necessarily say it was numbers, because you have to understand the world population of hominids was very low until recently. Um, until very, very recently. It's like, and that's because of how disease worked and population mechanics and other things that allowed these other species to continue at lower numbers. And humans even had a bottlenecking event, I believe, that brought us down to like between 23,000 and 120,000 people altogether.
Yeah.
No, 23,000. Because at the max average before was about 100,000. This is talking about early population stuff. Like, so early on, our species was hit with a disease of some kind, from what we understand of the fossil record. And so our people are just another creature. We're not the better creature. We're another creature.
Yeah. Yeah, and by ourselves, we would have a very hard time surviving in the natural world.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what I kind of meant by like powers and numbers, because of the fact that we were more willing to work together. Like you have the Bengal tiger. That thing is by itself, and it's a badass. I mean, it can kill a lion, but it also rules its territory. It can kill most of the animals it interacts. It's very good at hunting, and it's very good at surviving. And we can't match up to it one on one. But we've been able to almost wipe the entire species out because of the fact that unfortunately we were together, and in some ways that don't benefit the species. Deforestation, taking control of the land, killing off its natural prey, etc. So I mean that's what I meant by like power and population of numbers. I mean, one human wouldn't have been able to drive massive mammoth herds off the side of a cliff. It was because of the fact that we had a couple dozen of us running at them at once that caused them to run off the cliff.
Mm-hmm. Or one that just pops up from underneath a rock. That would be the lone smart human. The reason the psychopaths and sociopaths survived, because there would be that one human who gets under like a rock and then just pops out at the mammoth, and then the mammoth runs the other direction off the cliff.
And that could be how it started. Like you were saying, that passing down of information. And one human watched the other human pop out of the rock and scare that mammoth and have it run off a cliff and die. And then it kind of socially spread. Like, this is how you do it. Like, I was watching, I saw a couple of days ago where they were shooting a mammoth skull, and you saw the spear points all the like, you could see where the spears had impacted it, and these were kill shots. I mean, it was a liver, lungs, and brain. Okay, and despite not knowing technically what these terms were, we knew exactly where to hit this mammoth to kill it. And it's because for so many years we just threw randomly at the mammoth. We randomly threw spears at the mammoth, and there was one person who was like, who watched the mammoth die and said, okay, well, this is the fastest way. You throw the spear right underneath its right shoulder, or underneath its left shoulder, or something like that. It's that type of thing. It's the same thing as like eating poisonous fruit. Humans didn't instinctually know not to eat this red berry. A couple of us died at first before that lesson was learned. It was socially spread. Don't eat that red berry. No, don't eat that. That kind of thing. So I mean, I think that our power in numbers and our social ability and our ability to express ourselves via mouth instead of relying on like grunts or movement or anything like that. I think that we're not more involved in a natural sense, but in an intelligent sense, we're better off almost.
We are the birds of ape.
Yes.
But the Bible says.
The Bible says that apparently
Um,
every two species of every kind can work together without killing each other.
hmm.
Because God wanted to punish everyone but one family and have them fuck each other in incest. Because apparently that's okay.
People really don't question that a lot, and I think it's either because people think, oh, that's too easy of a target, or they'll just try and explain this with some sort of weird hoodoo. This is what they meant by it when they wrote it.
Mm.
Uh, you know, but no,
Yeah.
like they would have kind of had to, but the Bible does say that they went on and found wives or whatever. And from where? Like, it doesn't explain that. Apparently, God created them and blah, blah, blah. And then somehow there were other people. Somehow. Not going to really answer that one. It's kind of like it goes from an allegorical story to trying to attempt to be a history. Eh, it's just poorly written.
You had the people saying, "Oh, well, don't take the Bible literally." At first, you had to take the Bible literally. You had to take it. God was going to punish you if you sinned, or Jesus actually fed a couple thousand people with a single loaf of bread. Okay, but now it's don't take it seriously.
I
Just look
think
at the abstract story of it. Don't take it word for word. But before you had to, now you don't. And I think that's their line. It's the same thing as faith. Oh, you just gotta have faith.
Well, my
You know,
thing is this.
whatever argument works.
If someone, here's how belief usually works, right? I don't know if I've said this before, but if I have, I'll say it again. Belief usually works by you look around at what's going on, you understand stuff and understand how these tests were done to prove that this is what's going on, or you at first have to see the stuff before you accept it. You first have to have in some way perceived how this is actually working and seen that it does work this way. And like you know that this is true. Like you go outside and you look both ways before you cross the street because cars might be coming. You can't just assume and accept something to be true. Like, I'm not going to get hit by a car no matter what.
A lot of
Because
people do that anyway.
I know.
It's fucking crazy.
But I mean, I say you
I live
can't,
both
like,
ways.
not like people don't, but like you probably shouldn't. But like it's different. Within religious belief, you have to like accept it's true first, and then read it, and then you'll understand that it's true. And I'm like, but that's just like you've already accepted that it's true, so it doesn't matter what you read. Like, it's totally backward. Totally backward. Why does that one area of our brain seem to malfunction so much? I just don't get it.
I think it's a thing about humans. Like our intelligence is tied to one, our ability to see patterns. Like we see patterns very well. Like you have that phrase, "Hey, if you look at something long enough, you'll see a pattern." That's because our brains are kind of tuned in to see patterns. You also have the other thing where it's whereas we ask the question why. And we discussed this in the last podcast a little bit, but it's our ability to see patterns and our ability to question why. And I think that's that why question. But like you were saying, like you have to be able to observe this, and I think that's why like when you look at the scientific method, observation is kind of important in that in some ways. You have to observe something happening, you know, and that's why like you have to. Well, you can't explain gravity. Well, actually, I can explain gravity. I can see gravity happening when I drop a fruit. It goes down to the ground. Okay. Now, I might not be able to say. I might not be able to detect. I may not be able to feel it. I may not be able to sense it in any way, but I can see it happening. So you had that observation.
Here's what I say when regarding something like gravity. I say, okay, like you said, you have to observe something happening, but it's not necessarily like we have the explanation.
Mm-hmm.
In any given point, that's not really how science works. But what we do have is a very, very good explanation that has really, really useful applications that are real because, that actually work because our understanding of gravity is accurate to a degree. That degree that it's not accurate is very important. That's why science keeps doing science. Um,
It's always questioning.
yeah, it's to figure out exactly why and how and all the other questions, but primarily how. Like engineering is we know this and we've created this machine that can do this. And then ethics is, should we use this machine? Uh, you know, and then science has to repeat the process and say, well, what do we question in ethics? And we say, well, the harm coming to people. Oh, if we use this machine, then this will happen to the environment. And oh, that's bad, apparently. Well, then we shouldn't do it. It's like that's the kind of discussion that happens within scientific communities. Um, but whenever you're talking about gravity in particular, like we know how it works to the degree that we understand, observable mechanisms that everyone else can go and see if they want to, and we can repeat the same tests and it'll do the same damn thing every damn time. Every damn time. You know. But the
Right.
one time it doesn't do
Religion.
it,
Sorry.
the one time it doesn't do it is when we find out something new
That's the thing.
about.
Like, science is always willing to question what is known. Like, if you had a religion based on gravity, you couldn't question it. Gravity's gravity. Couldn't question it. It was gravity from the beginning. Science doesn't say that the apple fell in the guy's head and he went, "Oh, well, this is gravity. I know what it is. It's gravity." No, I mean he had to reserve it. He had to observe other objects falling down. He had to really work on this theory, and it didn't come until much later, after much questioning, that science kind of got the answer of what gravity is, what weight is. Weight is the effect of gravity on you, not necessarily just like, oh, we weigh, you weigh a certain amount. No, it's the effect of gravity on you that causes your weight. And it's like, with religion, you don't have that. You stop the question of why with religion, because it assumes that they know everything.
Yeah.
We exist on something called a Higgs field. This is my very inept attempt at explaining my understanding of how quantum mechanics explains gravity, and how our hadron collisions have provided us more insight than we could ever dream of on how we really don't understand what's going on exactly. But we understand that everything that we've discovered up to this point is apparently true, but now we're figuring out, like, why this is the way it is. And I don't often say that, but whenever you're talking about the mechanics of reality itself, then you're talking about why at that point.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
the only true why is anything even here at all?
yeah. Like, why does my digestive system like one food over the other? Why do I have a disposable thumb
I know
versus
why.
why do I
But
have the standard non-disposable thumb like most animals?
I
You
know.
the
know,
scientific question method of this is where you say, okay, how is it that something exists rather than doesn't? That's the quantum mechanic.
I know.
you discussed that. You were saying the difference between how something works and why something works. You discussed it in the last podcast. Just you were discussing you mentioned that it's not necessarily why, it's how.
Yeah, but when I say, that's when I made the distinction. I was like, how is the science? You know, why does this work is what leads us to being able to utilize it.
How does gravity affect us? How does gravity affect a spaceship leaving the Earth? How does low gravity affect the human body as far as bone structure and everything? Not why does it affect it or anything like that. That's it. That you found out low gravity. That's why. How does it affect?
Why is the observation? Why does, I guess in that case would be, why is the observation? That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Why does this do this? How is it doing
Because
it? That's the answer.
You don't ask why does your headphone work. It's how does your headphone work. Oh well, it's I don't know the science behind it. I can't really say anything about that, but it's an example. I mean, it's not. We don't ask why does this work. How. So it's how.
Now let's like bring this towards America now. America, would you like an education in science? And the overwhelming, resounding noise that you hear from a lot of children today is actually very good and surprising. Yes, they do want an education in science. However, from my generation and some of the previous generations before it, there was still that murmuring, I don't really give a fuck, and I'm gonna go do this and that and blah blah blah.
I'm gonna drink and hang out and have sex and
Yeah, really fun things, but
but
Yeah, it's not why do I have sex, it's how do I have sex.
that's a very good question.
well, you see, Timmy,
Guys don't give a shit about why they have sex. They know, like, how do I get it? How do I get it? That's that's the main question. When
I
you're a
don't
child,
know. I think some guys have the ability to go, why am I doing this?
certainly you have asexual people and everything like that that don't necessarily have that same type of sexual desire as others, and so they may question like, why am I not as normal? In parentheses, or I guess, how am I not normal? Why am I not as normal? And why am I not as active as others? Most people though are like, how do I get it?
I
Especially
mean, for me, it's not about how. I never really thought of it as a how activity. I more or less assume that if someone cares about you and like that's it's just gonna happen repeatedly. But
how
and
does
it
it happen
does.
repeatedly? Not why does it happen repeatedly. It's how does it happen repeatedly. No, I mean, I guess I can't really speak on this because I'm probably the only person in this whole entire group still has his V card. But no, I mean, it's that's the ever question. Like in America, it's not why is there an American dream. It's how to achieve that American dream. Nobody asks why there's an American dream. No, because it's America. That's why there is. It's how do I achieve it?
It's I guess understood as a social thing what the American dream is. It's been repeated to us in social studies class and whatnot, where it's like, oh, the American dream is you go out and you work, and in the reward of that is enough for you to make a living and whatever, and you get an education and you provide for your family and blah blah blah, and you build community, and yes, that can work. And it's really great when it does, especially if nobody's judging anybody and we all live, harmoniously and have decent manners and we're all pretty decently educated, and it could really work. But unfortunately, as the layman to put it, there's not enough lube in this situation. And when I say that, I know it sounds sexual, but it's not. People like to say that we're getting fucked in this country, right? Well, if you look at it this way, you could either be getting fucked good or fucked bad. Um, if you're getting fucked bad, the taxes aren't set up right. There's not enough lube. Taxes are the lubrication for a structured economy.
Hmm.
Taxes are the lubrication for society to have the means to do these things. Um, as far as infrastructure is concerned, and really most of our money doesn't go towards that. Most of our money goes towards a bloated military, and most of the money that's produced within our country stays out of our own economy, and that's the sad part.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of foreign-based companies that are coming here, and they're actually providing the jobs. The American-made companies are getting tax breaks in Scotland and in places like Taiwan, and they used to go to China. China's is cracking down a little bit, but I mean, like, you have a lot of there's more people probably employed in say places like Tennessee by BMW than there is Ford or Chevy or GM, which is Chevy. But you see that like what you're saying is like the American wealth is outside the country. We're actually relying on quite a few foreign companies now to provide jobs for us.
And my thing
Uber is
is,
not an American company. Uber is not an American company.
if someone okay, if we were to appropriately and progressively tax, and I'm saying all the way back to like Eisenhower rates, I'm saying seriously, if it worked then, it can work now. You ain't too big to fail, and if you are too big to fail, you're going to be the biggest workhorse for our economy because, I'm sorry, but our work provides you that. That's the point of labor. You can't just take all of the representation of labor and say, oh, I get this much of this representation of labor because it was my idea, or I'm the CEO and I think I've worked the hardest to get here, or whatever. When you've got an entire organization, a company, if you will, of people working underneath you that are making this possible. And I think that's what's forgotten.
The sum adds up to the whole.
Yeah.
And see, that's where socialism, in some ways, benefits people, because in socialism you have things called co-ops, and a company exists, but it's built not from a CEO, not from a chief financial officer, not from a chief operations officer. It's run by the individual employees involved. They literally have their own stake in the company, and that's where like people who are ultra afraid of socialism don't really understand how it works. Co-ops. I'm a part of an energy co-op here in Georgia. It's called Greystone Power, and they're linked with other businesses where you can get discounts. And there are other co-ops, and that's a system. That's a basically a socialist system. And but people socialism is such a bad rap that as soon as you hear it, you wanna oh well that's communism. I think there's a lot of confusion between the two. But I mean, that's where socialism comes in. Like, you can a capitalistic system, a capitalistic company doesn't care about its employees. It's not supposed to. That's not the directive of a capitalist company is to make a profit, and then return that profit to either the people who run it, or if it's a public company, to its shareholders in the form of a dividend or in the form of higher stock prices, etc. And so, I mean, I think that's in a capitalistic society, you're never going to have a company really that looks after its employees, not unless it's made to in some ways, but either by their image to the public or pressure by the system.
Well, in my this would be my opinion of it. In a socialist reticulum, those would be the regulations that you impose on financial institutions and other businesses that hold, large gainers. And if you're going to run off of this system where you base your model around profit, then you have to properly attribute the wealth that's gained, to where you don't impoverish the economy that you're trying to thrive upon. You
The
know,
sum adds up to the whole. Is a phrase I've heard before. It's the sum adds up to the whole. And it's unfortunate in the sense that because it's become such like you have like capital requirements on banks. That was one of the biggest things. Dodd-Frank capital requirements on banks, but how they made up that capital requirement was charging more fees to the more account holders they had. They literally made billions of dollars in fees over the past few years. It's not like they've improved their trading ability. It's not like they've improved their investing or anything like that. No, they actually made up all their profits, and they made up the bailout money through charging us extra. You had to pay an extra fee in order to transfer your money. You had to pay an extra fee if you wanted to take out money. You wanted to, and anything. So, like you were right. I mean, when you have that poor profit system, you should look at the sum of the whole, which is the employees that help you get the sales. It's the employees that help you earn that extra income. It's when you have a happy employee, you have happy business. Unfortunately, it's not seen as that today.
and much to the detriment of people. And what I don't think people understand is, and I'm talking even to the richest people when I say this, you know, what you don't understand is that yes, you do have a whole lot more than us. You have the best things money can buy, right? But there are better things money could buy if everybody had the chance to, you know, maintain some sort of fruition to keep the system flowing properly. the standards of wealth would go up. The standards of living would go up. So whereas everyone could live in a harmonious state, everyone could live with luxuries, everyone could have food on their table even, um, and create a better world, a more educated world. Those people that have all of this wealth, you would still have that wealth, regardless of whether or not it's represented by the same amount of zeros behind, the first figure. It's retarded to me.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about like pay these days, pay's slowly gone up. Aggregate wages have gone up about, four hundredths of a percent for a couple of months now, which is not really much. But they've slowly gone up. But the people don't realize is that like when Bush told everyone after 9/11 to basically spend, 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 buy as much as you can, you know, go out there and make the economy. Our economic development, our economic activity, when people had extra money to spend, when they had extra money to buy useless shit, we created countries. We created third world, second world countries. I mean, the American economy is literally the rival of the world, and it's because of our lifestyles. It's because of the fact that we want the big house, we want the big TV in every room, we want the PlayStation, we want the Xbox 360 and everything like that. When you have Americans now who are saving more than they're spending, you don't have that same economic activity. And so, I mean, if businesses really decide to treat employees like the economic activity that they really are, I mean, because you give somebody enough money. I mean, during the recession, people still ate out. They actually preferred to eat out than they did to make their own meals. I mean, Americans want to spend, but they don't have the wages anymore. Lowering
Yeah.
interest rates didn't help that.
Yep.
I mean, and unfortunately, we have reached the point in our own history where a good number of us are very uneducated. And it's not that there's not a desire to want to go and, work and get money. It's that to get the same amount of money to do what your parents did, you would have to work unhuman hours, like unhumanly impossible hours. You know,
You're talking 60, 80-hour work weeks.
and people do it. I'm not saying they don't.
Yeah, I mean, you always have the people
Have you
who are
ever
like,
talked to a person
I
who does
worked
it?
two, I worked two jobs, and I went to college, and I got my degree, and I raised this. And you have a lot of those old time stories where people are like, oh, I did 2, 3 jobs, and I was in college. So yeah, you can do it, but should you have to? Why literally break yourself down only to be able to enjoy your life in your 40s and your 50s to all of a sudden come into all these medical problems because you beat yourself up earlier in life? And
Yeah.
that's kind of what the actual American dream is you work your ass off in your most productive years, and then you pay for it later in life when you're supposed to be able to retire. You have all these medical problems. Your back is screwed up. Your neck is screwed up. You can't walk. You know, and it's just that's what we're heading to.
People just assume that's the price of getting old, but it's not. If you compare, you know, health and disability and stuff in our country compared to other countries, people do fuck themselves up working. And the problem is it's not fixed properly. It's not, or not treated properly in all cases because people can't always afford it, or because the ineptitudes of doctors in our own country, or it's just, or there's some for-profit mechanism in part for it where they're not going to fix this particular issue because it causes this person pain, and we can get them on a pain management schedule instead of fixing the issue, and dole out drugs to them that they'll eventually become addicted to, and then whenever we find something like weed in their system, we'll kick them off that program, and then or not the program, but stop prescribing them drugs, and then they go into withdrawals and have to buy them illegally, and then you create these horrible black market systems, and I mean there's so much wrong the way things are working now.
Like you have places though where you have places like San Francisco. Apparently, there's actually a term called yuppie, and it actually refers to someone who is relatively young but has really high income. People work at tech companies in San Francisco, and there's actually a problem. Like in San Francisco, you have a bunch of kids moving in to work at tech companies, who work at other companies where they're paid really high wages, and they're literally kicking out all the low wage workers who have to clean pots, who have to clean the streets, who work in the utilities, who basically make that area run. They provide the services, and they're being kicked out, and it's being seen as, oh, us versus them, instead of being seen as, well, look at what these kids are doing. These kids are, yeah, they're giving up the chance to have a family early, but they're making awesome income, and they're really applying themselves in the fields that are best applied available. But there's no real direction in this country. Like you had in our school, you had the poster. Oh well, someone who graduates high school is 15% more likely to earn this amount of more money than someone who just got their GED. But what that poster didn't say was all the jobs available to make higher incomes. You know, you have the standard things. You can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can have a business degree, you can, or you can work in cosmetology, or you can do all these things. There's no real system set up to help young people get into careers which will help them pay them a lot, which will give them that income to really create that American dream for themselves.
Yeah, but in the same token that there's not necessarily that there, even the incentives and the programs that you can get into to get into those things that would be relatively decent paying jobs still don't pay near what they need to pay considering the state of our economy.
Yeah, I mean, like not necessarily that was a bad thing, but you used to be able to support an entire household on one income, and that was kind of like the era of the stay-home mom. And it's unfortunate because women obviously deserve the same opportunities as men. They work as hard. They're just as intelligent. They're just as capable. But you had that era in like the 1950s, 1960s, where you bought the newest car, you bought the house, you bought a bigger house than you really needed. You there was the bubblegum industry was in the billions. Bubblegum, you know, um, that no longer exists. Now you need two incomes, and even that isn't enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dude, it's like, I mean, imagine a world today where the income was enough. Like if I'm working for $10 an hour now, I should be working for, and people call me crazy every time I say it. I know $15 an hour is a good thing, but $21 an hour should is like where our wage should be
For everybody.
for minimum. Yes. And people are like, well, what about the people who get paid this much already? And you're just going to outpace them and stuff. And it's like, they're not going to have any incentive to work in the field that they're in. And I'm like, but wait a second. No, if it takes that much more work to get to it and stuff, and people want to be paid more up there in whatever field that they're going into, they should be getting paid more than we are, but we should also be getting paid enough to do the things we need to do. I mean, the route for exorbitancy and wanting to live off of what you do is still possible, but it should be feasible for every person in this country, considering the amount of money that is in this country
And that's the thing.
to
Like
do
you
what
have
they
the
need to do.
you have to afford things that should kind of be already available to you. You have to pay. You have to fork over a whole bunch of money for healthcare. You have to fork a whole bunch of money over to retirement, to Social Security, which isn't likely to be there for our generation. You have all these needs, which really should you shouldn't have to worry about being fed. You should worry about having to have shelter. Like they have, there's a program. I don't know what country it's in, Basically, what they did is they built a bunch of small houses where you don't have hot water, but you have water, and you can install a water heater in the future. But they built houses basically for a whole bunch of poor people who used to live in like sheds and slums and everything like that. And they found that that gave them incentive to really improve themselves and really move beyond their area. As opposed to when they were living in the slums, they were kind of like, well, this is what I have. This is the only thing I have available to me. They had no hope. And so I mean, it's that thing. Like, as a human, you should have basic health care. You shouldn't have to worry about paying for dental. You shouldn't worry. You shouldn't have to worry about getting cancer. You shouldn't have to worry about having pre-existing conditions. It's not your fault. It's not your fault your genes are more susceptible to pancreatic cancer. It's not your fault that your genes are like you had the guy who was into juicing a lot. I forget his name. Um, but he was a juicing person. He was a leader in it, and up until his 80s he did marathons and he swam I think like the Pacific Ocean or something, and he died of heart disease. It wasn't his fault. It was in his genetics. And no one should be punished basically, and that's what we are today with medical conditions. Nobody should be punished because they get cancer. Nobody should be punished because they need an organ transplant. Nobody should be punished because they get sick and they have to take leave off. And that's the case. I mean, our incomes would be so much more. Would be so much better if we didn't have to afford a lot of the extra stuff that should be basic to us because we're humans.
See, like, even at my job, it's like if I were to call in, even if I'm sick, like, I feel like I would face some sort of retribution for even calling in, because people who are there or the owners of the place or whatever, just like, oh, well, I have to be here. Why, when really they don't always. But, it's just, I don't know. It's like the moment you become employed by somebody, the moment somebody's your boss, it's like what's important to you matters less than what's important to them. But they don't. It's like you have to realize that if you're leading this and everybody else is working with you to work on what you want to do, well, they are equal parts involved in it as you, like, regardless. I mean, you could even take it down to a fine metric and say everything that one person could do. Let's say one person owns a restaurant. How many people are they going to have to actually employ in order to, make it work? If they own the place and they do all this stuff, the cost of what the restaurant, costs to run should be, established, but the amount of profit made should be divided equally.
And that's where and it's a dirty word, but socialism comes to hand because in a co-op, that's what happens. In a co-op, everybody is paid equally in a sense because they all are the sum of the whole. They all contributed to the business, and they all get equal pay. They all get an equal share of that pay. And you had Japan, which almost type of was kind of like part of their thing. They had these companies that were co-ops that were unionized, and it was made up of the employees, and all the employees shared in the benefit of what that company received in profit, and they all were paid fairly. Now Japan is going to outside work, and they have a huge unemployment number in actual Japanese people because they're bringing in so much foreign work. That's where socialism benefits because you don't have that. You don't have to make a profit. People only make a profit so that the only incentive is to make sure that their life is good instead of making sure that the company survives. You know,
Yeah.
that's where socialism is the benefit because you have that co-op system where the business is the employees, not some CEO in 3 states away, not some CFO who says, well, that machine, which increases the safety of the employees, is costing too much. We need to get rid of it. Well, we need to get rid of the employees. Like you have I think it's there was a recent company who's going to sell. It was Walmart actually. Sorry, They're going to open the stores up again, but it's not mostly in America. In America, they closed 154 stores, and they laid off 16,000 employees. And in co-op, that doesn't happen. You know, it doesn't happen. It's crazy. You can lay off that many people, whether it's oil, whether it's the banks during the 2008 crisis. The first thing to do is to lay off massive amounts of employees instead of returning to a state of profitability where everybody can benefit.
Yeah, it's like you've got to keep the bottom line the same the whole time. And then if you can make improvements rather than we've got to make sure that the establishment, like everything that's working, continues to work. Because if stuff starts to not work, if the cancer of our business does not spread, then it regresses. Um,
Yeah. Hey, is it alright if we end it there?
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm pretty exhausted. I guess you guys could tell I wasn't really saying much, but I'm just like tired.
No, it's probably it's 1 a.m. our time. It's I think
Yeah.
it's 12:30 for Justin, right?
yeah, yes, it's 12:33.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, no, I understand, Chris. This conversation kind of wandered.
Yeah,
But I mean,
I guess it's because.
but I think we covered some important stuff.
Yeah.
We went
Alright.
from America to monkeys, dolphins, and whales back to America.
Yeah, kept in the same general area.
Yeah.
Yeah, on
And
planet Earth. We were pretty much on planet Earth.
eventually, we're gonna get this whole podcast thing figured out.
Although we did
Yeah.
delve into quantum
Yeah.
mechanics.
Um, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Um, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. All that good stuff.
Remember, if you don't do any of those things, you have 100 years of bad luck, and your grandchildren are going to be retarded. Just remember that.
Yep.
Not that retarded children are in any way
No,
not
I
yours.
mean
I
stupid.
mean,
I don't mean handicap. I mean stupid. Your grandchildren are going to be literally stupid. I mean, they're going to. I guess I'm using it in the incorrect sense.
no, I
I
know.
don't see retarded as handicap. That's not what I'm saying.
I know.
I'm saying it's stupid.
Thank you guys.
No problem.
Um, um, balls.
Bye.